The boardroom hummed with tension, the air heavy with the muted sounds of shifting papers and low whispers. It was the first quarterly meeting of the fiscal year, and the stakes were high. The company, a giant in its industry, had been navigating turbulent waters for months. Whispers of declining profits and internal discord had made their way through every corridor, from the breakroom coffee machine to the executive lounge. Today's meeting was supposed to be the start of a new chapter. Sitting at the far end of the gleaming mahogany table was Marcus Ellison, a senior board member known for his blunt, unyielding demeanor. His neatly pressed suit and perfectly styled silver hair projected authority, and he thrived on commanding attention in every room he entered. To his left, a young woman with a vibrant yet composed presence listened intently to the ongoing discussion. Her name was Maya Brooks. Maya, dressed in a tailored navy blazer and subtle gold earrings, had been invited to the meeting as a consultant. At least that's what the board thought. She had spent years climbing the ranks in various industries, known for her ability to turn struggling companies into success stories. But today, Maya had a secret that would change the dynamic in the room forever. The meeting had started predictably enough. Charts were displayed, data was dissected, and opinions volleyed back and forth. The board members, all seasoned executives, tossed out ideas on how to address the company's declining market share. Some proposed cutting costs, others suggested shifting focus to emerging markets. The conversation was passionate, but it lacked direction. As the discussion veered into familiar, unproductive territory, Maya spoke up for the first time. Her voice was calm but assertive, carrying the weight of someone who had spent countless nights studying every line of the company's balance sheet. Perhaps the focus shouldn't be on cutting costs, but on re-evaluating how we position our brand in this changing market. She began, her words measured yet piercing. There's an opportunity here to innovate rather than retreat. Her suggestion hung in the air for a moment, a stark contrast to the back-and-forth arguments that had dominated the meeting thus far. A few heads turned in her direction, intrigued, but not Marcus. He leaned back in his chair, a condescending smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That's an interesting thought," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "But frankly, I don't think it's relevant to what we're trying to achieve here." The room went silent. Maya's expression didn't waver, but a flicker of something, annoyance, determination, passed through her eyes. Marcus continued, oblivious to the ripple of unease spreading among the other board members. "This is a room of seasoned professionals," he added, gesturing broadly at the table. "We understand the complexities of this business. We don't have time for ideas that aren't grounded in experience." A few uncomfortable glances darted toward Maya, but she remained calm, her hands clasped on the table. She didn't need to respond. The weight of his words, dismissive and borderline disrespectful, spoke volumes. What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya wasn't just a consultant brought in to share a few fresh ideas. She was the new CEO, a decision made quietly by the board of trustees after months of deliberation. The official announcement was planned for the end of the meeting, but for now, she was observing, taking note of who in the room would be an ally and who wouldn't. As the conversation moved on, Maya stayed quiet, letting the moment linger in her memory. Marcus's dismissal wasn't just about her idea, it was about what he thought she represented. And he was wrong. About her, about the company, and about the future that was barreling toward him faster than he could imagine. The room buzzed with voices again, but Maya's mind was elsewhere. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The late nights, the doubters, the quiet sacrifices. This was her moment, and no one, not even Marcus Ellison, was going to undermine it. As the meeting neared its end, a soft chime signaled the arrival of the head of the trustees. The boardroom doors swung open, and all eyes turned toward the tall, imposing figure who entered. He carried a folder with the company's logo embossed in gold. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice commanding the room's full attention. "Before we adjourn, I have an important announcement to make regarding the leadership of this company." Maya sat up slightly, her expression calm but her heart pounding. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a self-satisfied smirk on his face, completely unaware of what was about to happen. The air in the boardroom seemed to grow thicker as the trustee stepped forward, his measured pace adding weight to the moment. He placed the folder on the table, his eyes scanning the room briefly before settling on Marcus. It was a fleeting glance, but one that carried a sense of knowing. Maya remained still, her composed exterior betraying nothing, though her mind raced. "As you all know," the trustee began, "this company has faced significant challenges over the past year. We've had to rethink not only our strategies but also our leadership. After careful consideration, the Board of Trustees has decided it's time for a new direction, one that aligns with the evolving needs of our industry. Marcus shifted in his seat, clearly eager to interject, but he restrained himself. His smirk deepened, as if he already knew where this announcement was headed. He glanced around the table, his gaze lingering on the younger board members who often deferred to his authority. A few of them offered polite smiles, but most avoided his eyes. The trustee continued, his voice calm but firm. Today, we are officially introducing a leader who embodies the values and vision that this company needs to thrive. Someone who has not only proven their expertise, but also demonstrated an unparalleled ability to innovate under pressure. There was a pause, and in that silence, Maya could feel the weight of the room's collective anticipation. Her eyes remained on the trustee, her expression unreadable, while Marcus's smirk faltered just slightly. This new leader has already made significant contributions to the industry and has a proven track record of driving results, the trustee said, his tone growing more resolute. We are confident that their leadership will guide us into a new era of success. Maya noticed the slight twitch in Marcus's jaw, a telltale sign that he was no longer as sure of himself. She allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile, savoring the irony. The man who had dismissed her mere moments ago was about to realize just how irrelevant his opinion had been. The trustee opened the folder, pulling out a single sheet of paper. Without further ado, he said, looking directly at Maya, "Please join me in welcoming Maya Brooks as the new Chief Executive Officer of this company." The room froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved or spoke, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Marcus's smirk disappeared entirely, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. His hand, which had been casually resting on the table, clenched into a fist. Maya stood, her movements deliberate and poised. The room's attention shifted to her, a mix of shock, curiosity, and in some cases, respect beginning to ripple through the gathered executives. She smoothed her blazer, her calm demeanor unshaken, and offered a polite nod to the trustee before addressing the room. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady and clear. "It's an honor to step into this role at such a pivotal moment for the company. I've spent the past several weeks closely observing our operations, listening to your insights, and analyzing the challenges we face. I look forward to working with each of you to turn these challenges into opportunities." Her gaze swept the room, pausing briefly on Marcus, whose face had hardened into a mask of barely concealed irritation. She didn't linger, choosing instead to focus on the broader group. "This is not just about leadership," she continued. "It's about collaboration. Together, we have the expertise, the resources, and the determination to not only meet but exceed our goals." The room erupted into a polite round of applause, though not everyone clapped with equal enthusiasm. Marcus remained silent, his hands firmly clasped in his lap. Maya noticed but didn't react, her focus remaining on the larger mission ahead. After the meeting adjourned, a few board members approached Maya to offer their congratulations. Their words were courteous, though she could sense a mixture of genuine support and cautious curiosity. As the room gradually emptied, Marcus lingered, his expression a storm of conflicting emotions. When they were finally alone, he approached her, his tone clipped and barely masking his frustration. "I wasn't aware we were making such drastic changes to the leadership structure." Maya met his gaze evenly, her calm composure unwavering. "I understand it may come as a surprise," she replied. "Change often does. But I assure you my focus is on what's best for this company. I hope we can work together to achieve that." Marcus' jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. "Of course," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "We'll see how things unfold." As he walked away, Maya allowed herself a brief moment to exhale. She knew this was only the beginning. Marcus wasn't the type to accept change gracefully, and she had no illusions about the challenges ahead, but she also knew she was ready. Her mind flashed back to her early career, to the countless rooms where she'd been underestimated, dismissed, or overlooked entirely. Each of those moments had shaped her, strengthened her resolve, and prepared her for this one. This wasn't just about proving herself, it was about setting a precedent for every voice that had ever been silenced. Outside the boardroom, the hum of the office continued as usual, unaware of the seismic shift that had just occurred within its walls. But Maya knew the ripple effects would be felt soon enough. The journey ahead would be anything but easy, but she welcomed the challenge. For now, the stage was set, and the players had taken their positions. The real work was about to begin, and Maya was ready to lead the charge, no matter what or who stood in her way. The office buzzed with quiet activity as Maya stepped into her new role. She walked through the hallways, observing the team she was about to lead. Every face she passed was a mixture of curiosity, hope, and skepticism. Whispers followed her, subtle but impossible to miss. Maya knew it wasn't just her appointment as CEO that drew attention. It was what she represented. Behind closed doors, Marcus was anything but silent. He paced his corner office, the view of the city skyline doing little to calm him. He clenched and unclenched his fists, replaying the boardroom announcement over and over in his mind. The memory of Maya standing tall, addressing the board with poise, felt like a direct challenge to his authority. He couldn't shake the sting of being blindsided. "Who does she think she is?" he muttered under his breath, his frustration spilling into his tone. He'd spent years building his influence within the company, carefully maneuvering through office politics. To have Maya, someone he viewed as an outsider, step into the position he believed was his birthright was unthinkable. Determined to reassert control, Marcus began working behind the scenes. He met with select colleagues, framing his dissatisfaction as concern for the company's future. "It's not about her personally," he said, leaning in during a hushed conversation with one of the senior managers. "I just don't think she understands the culture here. We've built something unique, and it takes time to really get it." The senior manager nodded hesitantly, caught between loyalty to the company and the undeniable logic of Marcus's words. Marcus smiled, knowing he planted the seed of doubt. Meanwhile, Maya wasn't oblivious to the undercurrents. She had long learned to read between the lines, to sense the subtle shifts in tone and behavior that signaled resistance. During meetings, she noticed how Marcus's tone turned overly polite, his words laced with veiled challenges. Others in the room followed his lead, hesitant to fully align themselves with her just yet. But Maya didn't confront him directly. Instead, she focused on the work. She scheduled one-on-one meetings with each department head, listening intently as they outlined their challenges and goals. Her approach was meticulous. She sought to understand every aspect of the company before making any sweeping changes. During one such meeting with the head of marketing, Maya learned about an upcoming product launch that had been delayed multiple times. The team was under immense pressure and morale was slipping. "We've been struggling to get the budget approval," the department head admitted. Marcus was handling it, but it's been stalled for weeks. Maya's brow furrowed. She made a mental note to address the issue directly, knowing that delays like these could ripple outward, affecting the company's reputation and bottom line. Later that evening, as Maya reviewed the budget reports in her office, she came across discrepancies that didn't sit right. Allocations for certain projects seemed inflated, while others were inexplicably underfunded. She cross-referenced the data, piecing together a pattern that pointed back to decisions Marcus had made during his tenure as interim leader. The next day, she scheduled a meeting with the finance team, asking pointed questions about the discrepancies. Her calm yet direct approach unsettled some, but the answers she received confirmed her suspicions. Marcus had been redirecting funds to pet projects, neglecting critical areas of the business. Maya knew she couldn't confront him without solid evidence and a plan. She needed to show the board that her leadership wasn't just about ideas, but about accountability and results. At the same time, she faced challenges on another front. An employee anonymously emailed her about a toxic work environment in one of the departments Marcus had overseen. The message was brief but concerning, describing a culture of intimidation and favoritism that had gone unchecked for years. Maya immediately launched an investigation, enlisting the help of HR and legal teams to ensure the process was thorough and fair. As the days went on, more employees came forward, emboldened by the steps she was taking. Each revelation added another layer to the growing tension. Marcus, sensing the walls closing in, doubled down on his efforts to undermine Maya. He began leaking selective information to the press, framing her initiatives as destructive and out of touch. Headlines questioning her leadership began to surface, casting a shadow over her early days as CEO. Despite the mounting pressure, Maya remained composed. She held a company-wide town hall, addressing the rumors head-on. "Change is never easy," she said, her voice steady. "But it's necessary. I'm here to listen, to learn, and to lead, not for personal gain, but for the future of this company." Her words resonated with many, but the battle was far from over. Marcus' influence still loomed large, and the conflicts within the company were beginning to bleed into external perceptions. Investors were growing uneasy, and clients began asking questions. Maya knew the stakes couldn't be higher. Her every move was scrutinized, every decision weighed against the backdrop of the company's history, and Marcus's calculated opposition. The tension continued to build, a storm gathering on the horizon. In the quiet moments late at night, as Maya reviewed reports or drafted strategies, she allowed herself to feel the weight of it all. But she also reminded herself of why she'd taken this role, not just for the company but for everyone who had ever been dismissed, underestimated, or silenced. The story was far from over, and Maya was determined to write the next chapter on her own terms. As weeks turned into months, the tension within the company reached a boiling point. Maya had made significant progress in addressing the issues that had been buried under layers of complacency. The delayed product launch was finally back on track, with the marketing team reinvigorated under her guidance. The internal investigation into the toxic work environment uncovered startling details, prompting immediate changes that began to foster a healthier culture. Employees who had once been hesitant to speak up now felt a renewed sense of hope. But not everyone was pleased. Marcus, watching his grip on the company slip away, became more desperate. He had spent years cultivating alliances, and though some of his supporters had started to waver, he still had enough influence to cause damage. His whispered criticisms of Maya turned into open defiance during meetings, questioning her every decision. "She's making rash moves," he argued during a tense board meeting. "The changes may look good on paper, but they're destabilizing the foundation we've built for years." Maya didn't flinch. She calmly countered, presenting data and results that directly contradicted Marcus's claims. But she could see the effect his words were having on some board members. Doubt lingered in their expressions, and she knew she couldn't rely solely on logic to win them over. She needed something more. Meanwhile, the media frenzy around the company's leadership drama intensified. Articles speculating about a power struggle between Marcus and Maya painted the company as unstable. Investors began pulling out of projects, and key clients threatened to sever ties. Maya worked tirelessly to reassure them, holding late-night calls and sending detailed updates to address their concerns. Behind closed doors, Marcus was preparing his final move. He had secured a private meeting with several board members, presenting them with a dossier of information designed to discredit Maya. Much of it was a mix of half-truths and outright fabrications, carefully crafted to cast her as inexperienced and overreaching. Unbeknownst to Marcus, Maya had her own plan in motion. Through the investigation into the company's finances, she had uncovered evidence that tied Marcus to several questionable practices, including misappropriation of funds and preferential treatment of certain vendors. She had been hesitant to use the information, knowing the fallout could harm the company's reputation even further, but with the stakes so high she had no choice. The day of the decisive board meeting arrived. The atmosphere was electric, every eye watching as Maya and Marcus took their places at the long table. Marcus started, his voice smooth and confident as he laid out his case against her. He spoke of tradition, stability, and the need for experienced leadership, framing himself as the logical choice to guide the company forward. When he finished, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to Maya. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding but her expression calm. She began by addressing Marcus's claims, dismantling them one by one with key yet irrefutable evidence. Then she pivoted. "What I'm about to share isn't easy," she said, her voice steady but firm. "But it's necessary for the future of this company and everyone who depends on it." She presented the findings of her investigation, laying out the financial discrepancies and the toxic culture that had taken root under Marcus' leadership. The room buzzed with whispered reactions. Marcus's confident facade began to crack, his expression shifting from smug to panicked. He tried to interrupt, but Maya held her ground, continuing to present her case with clarity and precision. When she finished, the board members sat in stunned silence. The weight of her words hung in the air, the tension palpable. The decision they faced was clear, but the implications were enormous. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus stormed out, his steps heavy with frustration. Maya remained behind, answering questions and providing reassurances. She knew the board's final decision would come down to more than just facts. It would be about trust, vision, and the future of the company. As she left the boardroom that evening, the sun setting behind the city skyline, Maya felt a mix of exhaustion and resolve. The battle wasn't over, but she had fought with everything she had. The climax was just around the corner, and the entire company held its breath, waiting to see how the story would end. The night after the board meeting, Maya sat alone in her office, the city lights twinkling through the tall windows. She replayed the events in her mind, every word, every glance exchanged in that tension-filled room. The evidence she had presented had been solid, but she knew the board's decision wouldn't just be about facts. Marcus had years of relationships built on favors and backroom deals. For some, loyalty to him ran deeper than reason. As she leaned back in her chair, trying to untangle her thoughts, her phone buzzed on the desk. It was an encrypted email from one of the investigative teams she had hired. The subject line made her heart skip a beat. Urgent. New evidence uncovered. Maya opened the email, her eyes scanning the attached files. What she saw made her blood run cold. The document detailed a secret fund Marcus had been siphoning money into for years, but it wasn't just the theft that shocked her. The fund appeared to have been used to finance smear campaigns, not just against competitors, but against anyone who opposed him within the company. Worse, there were signs he had been actively working with external consultants to manipulate stock prices, creating artificial dips to buy shares at lower prices. The implications weren't just career-ending, they were criminal. She knew she had to act quickly, but the stakes had just become much higher. Revealing this information could push the company into a full-blown scandal, potentially tanking its stock value and leading to a media frenzy. But holding back wasn't an option either. Marcus's actions threatened not just her position, but the very integrity of the company. Just as she began drafting a strategy, her office phone rang. The voice on the other end was tense. It was Olivia, one of the board members who had always remained neutral in the power struggle. Maya, I think you should know. Marcus has called an emergency meeting with a few key board members tonight. He's claiming to have a whistleblower ready to expose you. Maya's stomach churned. A whistleblower? It had to be a ploy, but it was a clever one. Even the suggestion of impropriety on her part could sway opinions before she had the chance to counter it. Marcus was playing dirty, and he was running out of time to solidify his position. Thank you for letting me know, Maya said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. I'll handle it. After hanging up, she reached out to her legal team, sharing the new evidence and instructing them to prepare for every possible scenario. She also called an emergency meeting with her closest allies on the board, laying out the situation and the risks they now faced. Together, they strategized late into the night, aware that every minute brought them closer to the tipping point. But the plot thickened further the next morning. As Maya prepared for her day, another message arrived, this time from a trusted contact in the media. The reporter warned her that someone had leaked an anonymous tip about the company's internal struggles. The story was set to break within hours, and it painted both Maya and Marcus in an unflattering light, implying corruption on both sides. The timing was too convenient. It was clear Marcus was behind the leak, hoping to muddy the waters enough to make her evidence seem like a retaliatory move rather than a genuine effort to protect the company. The narrative he was spinning was one of mutual destruction, a gamble to convince the board and the public that the safest choice was returning power to him, the so-called steady hand. Maya knew she couldn't let him control the story. She needed to act decisively, but every step felt like walking a tightrope. With so much at stake, one misstep could cost her everything. As the hours ticked by, the tension mounted, and it became clear that the final confrontation between Maya and Marcus was inevitable. The company's future, and perhaps their own, hung in the balance. The tension was electric as the boardroom filled with members for what promised to be the most consequential meeting in the company's history. Marcus sat at the far end of the table, his expression smug and self-assured, while Maya entered with a calm, collected demeanor. Every pair of eyes shifted between them, sensing the storm that was about to erupt. As the meeting began, Marcus wasted no time. He stood, addressing the board with a dramatic flourish. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a crossroads. The leadership of this company is in question, and I have evidence to suggest that Ms. Coleman is unfit for the position she holds. He gestured to a folder in front of him. I have brought forth a whistleblower who can attest to unethical practices under her leadership. A murmur ran through the room, but Maya remained composed. She glanced at Marcus, her expression unreadable, as he opened the folder and produced a statement, presumably from his so-called whistleblower. The document was vague, filled with insinuations rather than concrete accusations, but Marcus's performance was convincing. He spoke with confidence, using every rhetorical trick in the book to cast doubt on Maya's integrity. When he finished, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to Maya. She rose slowly, exuding a quiet authority that seemed to fill the room. "Thank you, Marcus," she said, her tone calm but sharp. "Now, if we're done with theatrics, I'd like to present the facts." Maya signaled to an assistant, who distributed copies of the documents she had received the night before. "What you see before you is indisputable evidence of financial misconduct orchestrated by Marcus himself. This includes embezzlement, stock manipulation, and smear campaigns aimed at silencing dissent within this very company. The room erupted in gasps and whispers as the board members flipped through the pages. Marcus's face hardened, but he tried to mask his unease with a forced laugh. This is a desperate attempt to deflect from your own shortcomings, Maya. These so-called documents could be fabricated. Maya didn't flinch. You're right, she replied. They could be, if I didn't have corroborating evidence. She nodded toward the door, and in walked a forensic accountant who had worked on the case. The expert explained how they had traced the funds and verified their authenticity, leaving no doubt about the validity of the findings. As the explanation unfolded, Marcus's confidence visibly faltered. He leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table as though trying to steady himself. But Maya wasn't finished. And there's one more thing, she said. Marcus, you claim to have a whistleblower, correct? Let's hear from them. The room turned to Marcus, who shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here today, he said, his voice cracking slightly. Maya raised an eyebrow. That's convenient, she said, because I happen to have someone here who can shed light on your so-called whistleblower. She motioned to the door again, and Olivia entered, her expression resolute. Olivia, would you please explain what you overheard? Olivia detailed the secret meeting Marcus had held with select board members, where he admitted fabricating the whistleblower's story to discredit Maya. The room fell into stunned silence as the weight of Marcus's betrayal sank in. Realizing his position was untenable, Marcus erupted in a final act of desperation. This is ridiculous. She's manipulating all of you, he shouted, his voice tinged with panic. But his outburst only cemented his downfall. One by one, the board members turned away from him, their expressions a mix of disappointment and anger. The chair of the board finally spoke, his voice firm. Marcus, your actions have endangered this company and betrayed our trust. Effective immediately, you are removed from all positions within this organization. Security will escort you out. Marcus's face drained of color as two guards appeared at the door. He stood glaring at Maya one last time. You'll regret this, he muttered before being led away. As the door closed behind him, a wave of relief swept through the room. Maya took a deep breath, her composure finally breaking into a small, triumphant smile. But just as she thought the ordeal was over, the chair of the board addressed her. Maya, while your leadership has been exemplary, we've received a concerning tip about external parties trying to use this turmoil to stage a hostile takeover. We need to act quickly to secure the company's future. Maya's smile faded. The battle with Marcus was over, but a new challenge loomed on the horizon. She squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever came next.